Imagine a space colony, a group of human pilgrims who leave their home planet to establish a new civilization on a virgin planet. This is a staple of science fiction. It appears in a lot of science fiction stories and in episodes of Star Trek, this notion of these pilgrims establishing a new world someplace else. And they have to do it because they've ruined their old world. Their old world is dying. Maybe the sun goes supernova or they've destroyed the environment. But their old world is no longer sustainable, so they have to create a new world. And in a practical sense, this isn't possible because we have no habitable planets anywhere near us. Nonetheless, the idea of a space colony is a useful metaphor, a kind of mind exercise for ways you can organize humans on Earth. Now, actually, this was a real thing back in a couple centuries ago when real pilgrims left Europe to come to America for a new life and establish the kind of life that they wanted. So it's not an outlandish idea, just picking up roots and going someplace else and establishing a sort of little island where you can live life the way you want to live it. And this is relevant today because humanity as a whole is suffering from a population crisis. It's not a population crisis on the upward end. It's not like we're exploding. That's not the issue anymore. That's only an issue in Africa. In the rest of the world, the real problem is implosion, where we're not making enough babies, and more importantly, the most intelligent and accomplished members of society are not having enough babies. Even if you're deciding to have children with just one other person, you're establishing a sort of space colony. You are joining together. You might get married to this other person with the aim of having children. You are forming a little island where you're going to control how procreation takes place and how child rearing is going to take place. The only trouble with that kind of two-person space colony is that it isn't working in the present day, and that the people we want to be reproducing, the most intelligent and accomplished people, just find it too expensive. Just find it too costly, both in terms of money and in terms of lost opportunities and risk. All of these things contribute to smart people not having babies. So to get the smart people having babies again, we probably have to group together as a community and find some way to raise children as a community where we can distribute the cost and distribute the risks. So that's exactly what you're doing with a space colony. You are gathering together with a bunch of like-minded people on your home planet, and you're coming up with a plan for how to establish this colony elsewhere. And you've got to come up with a plan before you even build your spaceship. You've got to come up with a plan for what you're going to do when you get there, because that determines the design of the spaceship, and that determines what you're going to bring with you on your journey, and who you're going to invite on your journey. All of that has to be determined before you even leave your home planet. And that's the interesting part to me. How are people going to organize themselves to raise a lot of children? So there's certain features that these space colonies or pilgrims have to have. First of all, they have to have a source of financial support. If you're going to build a spaceship and go to a different planet, you have to have some money to pay for it. And right now, I don't have a solution to that. That's the same thing if you're marrying someone and you want to raise children. Well, you have to have a means of financial support. And it's really hard for me, speaking in 2019, about how you're going to support yourself 50 years from now. Maybe it's just a matter of each of them goes off and works in a conventional job and contributes to the community, comes home to the community to contribute to the raising of children. Or the whole community may produce something, may may produce a product that the community as a whole sells to the outside world. Or perhaps the community is self-sustaining. Perhaps they have agriculture and can provide everything for themselves. That's very difficult in the modern world, but it could be possible. Once you've established your means of financial support, your next task is selecting the right kind of people to join your program. You don't want a Donald Trump among your colonists because he's going to disrupt everything. And there are lots of other mental illnesses, personality traits that you just don't want on your expedition. You want intelligent people who can process logic. You want people who can work with others, who do not have any obvious mental defects. And for that, you've got to go through this selection process, this very rigorous selection process. At the same time, your group has to be appealing to others so that you attract the right kind of talent for your group. So this is a huge challenge. I don't know how it's going to be done. It certainly can't be done in today's world because no one is really upset about population loss at this point. There aren't enough people who would be willing to give up their individual lives to join a group at this point in history. Now, 50 years from now, or even 20 years from now, things may be so bad on planet Earth that you have a lot of people who are willing to make a change. Let's say you get this group together, you all believe in something, you all believe in a charter, you start building your spaceship, and you think about what you're going to bring on your space journey to this other planet. And, well, you want to bring some genetic material, okay, eggs and sperm and stuff, because that's part of our human heritage. You also want to bring an archive of all of human knowledge with you on your space journey, so that when you're ready to come to this new planet, you've got everything. You've got all of our heritage, all the human heritage at your disposal. And actually, this doesn't take up a lot of space. You know, you could have millions of sperm and millions of eggs in a very small space. It doesn't take up much space at all in your spaceship. It's also true that you don't need much space to preserve all of human knowledge, because you could throw Wikipedia in. The entire contents of Wikipedia could be thrown onto a hard drive or something that doesn't take up much space. But now you've got to also carry humans, and you have to think about what humans you want to carry, who you want to bring along, what sort of people you want to have ready. And what I propose is a spaceship full of females, because females are highly versatile. Females, they can do everything men can do, and they can bear children. Really, males aren't necessary for your space colony, because we have artificial insemination, we have in vitro fertilization, we have all those eggs and sperm already in storage. We don't need men. Men are superfluous. And I'm allowed to say this because I'm a man. If I were a woman standing here and saying we don't need men, you think I'm kind of shrill and shrewish. But as a man, I can just look at things logically and say, you know, you don't need us. Let's go off and start your space colony, reproduce, make yourself lots of daughters. And then when you've established a nice, constant population level, a sustainable population level, then you can bring the males back. I'm not sure why you would want to bring the males back, but you're capable of doing that at some later date because you've got all this genetic material at your disposal. In other videos, I've talked about the family. There is no technological alternative to a mother bearing a child. Machines can't do it. You know, there are no artificial wombs. You have to have a real human being bearing this child, one or two at a time. And then there's no alternative to personal attention. There's no technological alternative to humans raising other humans. This is one area of human endeavor where technology just doesn't help you. When a baby is born, that baby needs direct human interaction with an adult figure. It needs somebody to talk to it. It needs somebody to show it the basic rules of life, because humans are a programmed species. They come out of the womb like computer hardware, they require software. They require software programming over the course of many years before they become useful adults. So this programming requires one-on-one human interaction. And normally this is done by one adult, the parent, who interacts with the child from the time the child is born, talks to the child, gives the child language, gives the child basic moral skills. I'm saying that this doesn't have to be the biological parent, and it does not have to be a full-grown adult. In large families, you have children teaching other children. Children, certainly an 8-year-old can talk baby talk to a baby, can interact with a baby. You don't need a PhD adult to do this. So to take advantage of this, I propose a very large family, that when your space colony gets to its new home planet, we establish households that are very large. Not huge, but the extreme limit of what a normal human family would be. I'm thinking between 9 and 18 children living under one roof. And the older children teach the younger children. Maybe 80% of the knowledge that a baby gets, that a child gets in its early years, can come from other children. Children can change diapers, children can talk baby talk, children can teach a new baby basic skills. Then you need adults sort of to keep the whole ship running. So in this household of 9 to 18 children, you do have one parent, at least on duty during the day. And this parent is making sure that the whole operation is running smoothly and that everybody learns what they need to learn. The things that children can't teach other children have to be taught in some other way by an adult, and maybe in something like a real classroom setting. But we need to take advantage of what big families can do. So I imagine this space colony, once they arrive on their new home planet, they establish households of between 9 and 18 members. There's a bunch of these households. Initially, they consist mainly of women, because women, as soon as they reach maturity, they can start bearing children. And if you have mainly women in your group, then a woman doesn't have to produce 2.1 children to sustain the population. People have to produce 2.1 children because the men are deadbeats and I can't produce any. But if you have mostly girls in your family, then each girl only needs one baby to sustain the community. And if she produces 2, then all of a sudden the community is going to explode very quickly, without the need of each woman having too many babies. When do women have children? I propose that they have them very young, as teenagers, as soon as they're capable of having them. Now, this sounds outrageous. This is not what we approve of in current society, but we're not talking about current society. What we've done in this new civilization is that we've removed romance from procreation. Procreation, the eggs and sperm are supplied by the community. We don't need people to fall in love anymore. Procreation is such an important thing to this new community that it cannot be left to the randomness of romance. We have to deliberately decide what eggs and sperm are going to be reproduced. That smacks of eugenics. It sounds barbaric. But if you have a space colony and you want to establish the best of humanity, you have to think about what eggs and sperm you are perpetuating. And then you have to think about how you're going to program these individuals once they are born, because humans are highly programmed creatures. They come out as raw hardware. They come out of the womb as raw hardware. And from that point on, you have to program them. And the reason their childhood is so long is there's a lot of programming to do. There's a lot of acculturation to do to turn an infant into a functioning adult and a moral and useful member of society. So none of this in a future society, none of this can be left to chance. You have to systematize things. You have to systematize how children are are conceived, and you have to systematize how they are raised. And this is much better done in a family that lasts a long time, that doesn't just disband after 2 or 3 children are born. That the family should go on for ages. This community has come to this new planet to produce children. They're going to do it in some systematic way. They're going to choose the right sperm, the right egg, and they're going to implant them in young females as they come of age. This sounds barbaric in our society. It may not seem that way in a future society where you're raised to understand that this is going to happen. Every female, once they reach a safe age, is going to have an egg implanted and is going to bear a child. You're going to do it young. You're going to do it early in your life. It's sort of like your national service. Every woman, once they reach adulthood, bears 2 or 3 children. After she has born the children, then she can go on to building a career, joining the community, building a career, and going off and seeing the world or whatever. This should happen after you have the babies. And the advantage of this large family is that where children are raising other children, is that the mother, the biological mother of the child, is going to be close to the child during its birth and probably breastfeeding this child until the child is a toddler. But at that point, the mother can kind of pull away. She's still part of this family, but she can pull away and do other things, go other places, because the baby now is the responsibility of the community. Mother is still part of the baby's life, but the baby is more owned by the household, owned by the community, than by the biological parent. So how do you lead and organize this society? What is the form of government that we're going to have at in our new planet? This sounds outrageous, but I propose democracy, representative democracy, where people elect their leaders, and their leaders determine the policies that the community follows. This does not work in the current world because there are too many idiot voters. And in this new community, you have selected the voters. You have selected who's joining your community. You are individually training every new voter. So you have a much better chance of voters making rational decisions in this new community than you had in the old planet. The old planet collapsed in part because democracy there didn't work. We gave the vote to too many people who are making too many stupid decisions, like electing Donald Trump. So back during the colonization of America, we had space colonies. They were called pilgrims, or people coming to America were essentially space colonists. A lot of them formed religious groups that came over as a group. It was seen as virgin land. America was seen as virgin land that was just there for the taking. We know there were already people here, but we kind of glossed that over in our history. As far as the colonists were concerned, this was virgin land in America. They came, they established communities of their own design, and they lived a new life. They created a new life for themselves. Although we cannot go into space to do this, we can do it on planet Earth, because with so many countries losing population, like Japan and Eastern Europe, there could be a lot of virgin land out there. There could be whole cities that could be repopulated by new pilgrims. You just have to get the permission of whoever is currently controlling the country. Japan, for example, is very opposed to immigration right now. But as their population falls by 500,000 every year, they might be open at some point to pilgrims coming in and settling their empty spaces and maybe paying some taxes to the Japanese government. So this whole notion of a space colony, of a colony of pilgrims, isn't so outrageous. Something has to be done. Something has to be done to bring up the population of intelligent people. And how are we going to do it? Well, I propose we build a space colony, and instead of going off into space, we find some place that will have us, where we can establish these large families and live in a close community that supports these families. So in future videos, I'll talk more about what the family structure would be in these new communities. These large, I called it the modular family. What is the outside structure that supports the modular family? What is the role of adults in this modular family, and how do we raise good children within them? You can call me crazy if you want. I'm just trying to think of ways that humanity can save itself. More importantly, that the best parts of humanity can save themselves. I'm not too worried about humanity surviving, that the humans will survive because somebody will reproduce. I just want to find ways that the most intelligent people can reproduce, and we can preserve the best parts of humanity, and not just warring tribes in a post-apocalyptic wasteland. I want there to be a good future for humanity, and that means making babies, finding some way for intelligent people to make babies without going broke and without taking on enormous risks. And to do that, you have to group together in some way. I'm not saying how, we just have to gather together in some big community in some way specifically to raise children. It's not going to happen now because it's not a crisis now, but pretty soon it will be a crisis when you look all around you and you see only old people, and there's no one left, no young people to carry on what you have built. Then you might think seriously about a different kind of structure. Something that might seem utopian right now could seem very realistic in some future world where there are no alternatives. Whitehorse, Yukon. I'm standing in the middle of the Yukon River. There's a steamship over there, bluffs. This is on the Alaska Highway. Right now it's very early in the morning. I set up at about 4 a.m. and this is about 5 a.m. because the sun comes up really early here. A bit chilly, a little bit of snow still. A bit chilly, but generally nice weather. Oh. Boy, I hope I hit everything.